This is the Team Objection podcast from May 30th, 2019, episode 393, and I have a thing to tell you. All of you. Just
the
you
two of
two.
us?
And everybody
Yeah,
who's
that's-
watching / listening.
Everybody in the world.
It's Tumblr time.
Yeah.
Tumblr time!
Now, it's Tumblr time with a caveat. This survey that I've pulled for this particular episode is actually not from Tumblr. In fact, it's from a site that I'll probably use for a few more of these segments down the road, so I lied.
Already, I mean, what are we, 10, 15 seconds in?
Yeah, it's par for the course.
That's
Man.
probably fair. That's probably fair. So the rules are basically this. We're going to have some form of rolling dice. As you can see on my camera, I have the traditional D100. They may have dice. They may have a dice roller on their phone or their computer or whatever it might be. There's Roll20 you can use for stuff like this. It's all fine. But in some form or another, we're going to roll these. We're going to find out what number that corresponds with a question, and then we're going to go ahead and answer said question, unless it sucks, in which case we're going to throw it in the abyss. We're going to only be able to do that a couple of times, but if we decide something's bad, gone.
Into it.
Now, a couple of caveats here. Number one, there's not really two caveats. I lied about that too.
Oh my
Man,
god, he's
I can't trust
he's
you.
just on a rampage.
I'm
of
really sorry.
lies.
The only
I can't
caveat
trust you
is
at all.
I know. The only caveat is essentially this. I started off thinking maybe it would change it up and do like a never have I ever thing, which isn't really all that different. They're spiritually the same thing. The only ones I could find today, not that I looked for super long, but the ones I was finding kept being like 150 different variations on sexy ones.
Yeah.
It's like, never have I ever had sex with someone 10 years older than me. Never have I ever had sex with someone 10 years younger than me. Never have I ever had sex in this place, this place, this place, this place. It's
That
like,
would get boring real quick with anybody.
yeah, with any group.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, yeah, even if I'm, like, sitting there drunk and with, a mixture of guys and girls that are open and willing to talk about it. Like, cool, all right, well, I'm glad you did that in the pool that one time. I've heard about the other 30, so let's stop.
The only scenario I could see that being useful is a one-on-one with somebody that you are into. And even then, I'm kind of like, this is still a little bit weird. I
And
don't know if
hope to
it's-
get into.
If you need an icebreaker, I guess, but it's
Yeah.
weird that you need an icebreaker where you can be so forward in it. It feels like if you can be that forward, you don't need the icebreaker. But I don't know. All right, I'm going to roll first because I have the screen up and I can see what the results are. 30, what is that? 6. 6s and 9s look similar. 36. What is the most expensive thing you've broken?
Huh.
Well, I can go. I could say that probably the most expensive thing I've broken is my old Ford Explorer back in high school. I got in a car accident. So,
Oh.
That does
Um,
count.
I mean, it wasn't totaled, thankfully, but I crashed it when I was 16. Or someone crashed into me. It was my fault because I didn't know how to drive properly because I was 16. But yeah, that's probably it.
That's a good one. I've totaled one vehicle, but it wasn't my fault, so I don't know if I would even say that I broke it. I was
Yeah,
just
it's not your
driving.
fault. It's not your fault then.
I was playing my brother's Xbox when it broke. I would consider that me having broken it. I didn't do anything really. I think it was on its way out. That's gonna be my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I think that is the most expensive thing I've broken, which is not that expensive, but
I think that fits. I'm honestly struggling with this one because I'm really careful with my stuff.
I am too.
Like to a fault almost. So I know there have been things that have maybe been like dinged up, but I can't think of a thing that I outright like dropped and just broke. Maybe it was fixable or something. I mean, I smashed a couple controllers back in the day. I was like Sean, an angry controller thrower. So I can
Yeah,
remember a couple of
same.
those where I would throw it and I'd be like, well, that's busted now. That was a mistake. I think that, I mean, some of those wireless ones could go for like $40-$50. That's not nothing.
I don't know. I mean, have you ever you haven't dropped your phone and broken or anything like that?
No, I've
No,
never actually
I-
even like gotten my phone like dented or like
Me
cracked
either.
at all.
I had one time my phone fell out of my pocket at a baseball game because I sat down in the seat and it just slipped right out of my pocket. I don't know how, and the screen was shattered. I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
Like watching it in slow motion
It
as
was
your
so
life
bad.
crumbles.
It was so frustrating because it just fell and shattered. I'm like, but it was in my pocket.
Uh,
I have been lucky in that I did drop it once. I've had a smartphone for I mean, what, 7, 8 years now. God only knows. It has slipped out of my pocket once with my giant ass pockets and my giant ass phone, but it landed on the case side.
Yeah, there you go.
So maybe that was the moment that was supposed to be the answer to this question, but it's not.
I can say I'll throw one more. I didn't do it intentionally, but I did break my DS somehow, just over years of it not working eventually. I don't know.
I broke my mom's clavicle.
There you go.
Can you
That's
put a
quite
price tag
expensive.
on that, though?
I mean, what was the
The
medical
hospital
bill?
bills, yeah.
Right? I mean, healthcare is a really expensive field, so that might be the most legitimate answer. I was like 2 days old.
No.
Well, that was my mom's
What?
wrist. I broke my own clavicle. I'm dumb. But yeah,
Oh,
whatever.
You're just like on a lying rampage, and you can't tell a whole truth. It's
Yeah.
got to be like halvesies or bust.
For some reason, my
I'm just-
memory of my first week is not very sharp.
why?
I mean,
I don't know.
whatever, dude.
I know. Whatever gets you going. All right, we'll go clockwise, and the clock tells me it's Michelle's time.
Okay. I roll a 15.
15. When did something start out badly for you, but in the end, it was great? This is going to take a moment. Watch us mull it over.
My first boyfriend? Because he's
Yeah.
gone now?
Oh, and it turned out great because he's gone.
That didn't
Yeah,
start out
exactly.
badly, did it? Like the first couple weeks were okay
No.
at worst.
No, it didn't start out badly. So I guess it doesn't really fit. But yeah, the first weeks, those first 2-3 weeks, those
Yeah.
were golden weeks.
Yeah, well, the newness
And,
hasn't worn off, and the endorphins are still rushing through and making you blind to the other issues.
You know what's weird is that there never really were endorphins. I was like, oh, you paid attention to me. That's exciting for like a minute. And then I was like, okay. And I was kind of over it by that point.
And you were with him for 5 years.
6.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I undersold you. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yep.
no.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'll have to think about this a little more then.
I can actually probably say the relationship I'm in that involves marriage now, because it actually didn't start out great. It's weird. We met, and like it was definitely one-sided. I liked her, but she didn't like me. And then for a while, we kind of did that, like we'll hang out as friends, but nothing else. And then I kind of found somebody else that was interested in me. Then she started liking me, and then we kind of got in an argument about that. And then years of breaking up and not breaking up, and now we're married. So yay, everything worked.
I should have known that it was going to be a marriage answer to one of these. I didn't expect question 2. I'm not saying it's a bad answer. It fits. I'm just saying I should have put money on the over-under. It would have been like 4.5, and it would have been the under
Yeah.
by a
Marriage,
margin.
marriage time.
Yes. It's marriage o'clock. I have the same problem Michelle does, where I can think of things that turned really badly and then ended up being great. I'm trying to think of things that I've spent time on in my life that just were shitty from the beginning that I stuck with long enough to turn them great. And I'm having a
Yeah.
hard time with that answer.
I mean, episode 1 of this podcast.
I mean, I'm sure there are listeners who would take issue with great now. I'm sure there's issues with it did start out pretty bad. We've talked many times on the show about how cringeworthy a couple of those early episodes are. And it's not even just because of the content. Some of it's also just the fact that it sounds like garbage. And we're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a professional product that we're going to put out there for people to listen to. And if they start in our archives, that's the one they're going to get. That's tough. I can think of moments that went to an absolute low before an absolute great, but I'm having a hard time giving you an answer for this specifically.
I know. Yeah. The thing that's weird is that now that I'm thinking about this, I never really commit to things that are shit shows from the get-go.
Mhm.
I think we as humans try to avoid that on a regular basis. So yeah, I honestly can't think of one that started out bad.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of tough to have a reason to stick around when it starts out poorly.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of bail.
I guess I do have an answer, and it's 8th grade. I think I've told the story in the podcast before about how I got uprooted. We moved across the city. I lost all my friends. We were going to a different high school, well, middle school. That grade sucked in the beginning, starting from scratch. And I really wasn't a big fan of it. I didn't really want to be there. It was a small class. It was like 15 people that graduated in my class or something. So, like, you couldn't really hide or get lost in the anonymity where you could a bigger class where you're just one kid in a sea of 35 in that one class and like a class of 200 plus. So it pretty quickly had to turn into like, well, you either got to suck it up and start over or you're just going to be miserable all year. And by the end, I made some pretty good friends that year. Some people I spent a lot of time with and enjoyed time with. I haven't spoken to any of them really since high school even, so I don't know if it lasted, but I do have fond memories of that year even though it was miserable the first couple weeks.
There you go.
That's a good one. You actually made me remember the time I was arrested for sexual assault. Started out pretty bad, ended up being pretty cool because I was like, it was not a real thing. I'm pretty sure I've told the story on the podcast multiple times.
I think you once at least.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. The bus driver was insane and like called the police because me and my friends were playing this like titty twister war on the bus, and I was like a victim and I never actually contributed. But anyway, I got arrested, and then they were like, I'm so sorry, this is the worst. But then one of my teachers like called me like a degenerate or something like that. And then she went to the high school. So I was in high school. She ended up quitting being an elementary school teacher and went to be a counselor at the high school. And like, so I saw her all the time, and she thought that I was like this shitty like sexual predator or whatever. And I graduated like top 5% of like something 5% of my class, and I like walked up and she was in the line of people to shake hands with, and I was like, nope, sorry, I'm too much of a degenerate for you, like fuck off. And then I like walked away. So it's pretty cool, and it was terrible. It was like one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life.
I haven't had a lot of experiences with Rebel Michelle. I missed them. I feel like I missed out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very small moment, but it was sweet victory. I mean, honestly, I was totally a victim in the whole thing, and it was pretty terrible. I mean, there were like rumors going around middle school that I was like having sex with kids on the bus, and it was just like, it was real bad.
Yeah,
like, my entire
Go ahead, sorry.
reputation was fucked. So
I saw people that were talking about Persona 5 and about how like there's this like a series of ludicrous things happening at the school, and everybody spreads rumors about everything, and people are like, does that really happen? And I'm like, I don't know about this much, but it absolutely does. 100%.
Yeah, it's so weird, and it's just kind of like you hear a trickle of a truth of something, and then people just take it, and it's like wildfire. It was weird. I had never really been. I mean, people like thought that I was a lesbian, and that was kind of like muttered around throughout the school a little bit. Nothing serious though. It was just because I wasn't dating dudes. But like, they'll take any little kernel and just run with it. And it was one of the first times I'd seen that happen. It was really weird, and it did definitely impact my like how people thought of me and stuff for a couple years at least. So it was shitty. I didn't actually, it was not my fault. I was forced into whatever had happened, but yeah.
So I don't know if it ended up great, but it ended up a hell of a lot better.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't even like I did anything necessarily as a result of it. I was just staying my good student self, but I was able to have sweet victory and revenge. So that was pretty great.
All right, Dave, roll it.
All right. See what the dice roll says. See if it says 87. Can't really see it on
sort of make that out, yeah.
87.
Some of them give bigger results, but who knows? This is not a video show anyways, right? That's just the secondary part. Okay. What's the funniest comedy skit you've ever seen?
I can think of mine, and it's words I won't even want to say on this podcast, but Louis C.K., as disgraced as he may be now, does a skit where he talks about the N-word, the C-word, and the F-word that's used, the slur for a homosexual. And the whole skit, he talks about these words and how he has interpreted them through his life. And like, you know, the F word he doesn't think is referring to gays. It's just someone being stupid. It's like how he grew up. And so he goes through this whole skit talking about it. And I can't do it justice without going through the whole skit, because basically he ends by saying those three words in one big word. And it is the funniest fucking thing I've heard in a long time.
I've heard a lot of Louis C.K. and I've never heard that skit.
It's funny. It's stupidly funny because, like I said, if you just say it, without the setup to it, it's not funny at all. But it's like a 15-minute setup almost, and he recalls it later in the skit.
Yeah,
And
I
it
like
is
when he does
so
that.
funny. Yeah. So it's really funny. I had to, watching that comedy special, I literally had to pause it because I was laughing too hard.
I have to agree. There's actually a couple of Louis C.K. skits that I listened to and I've actually seen him a couple times. That I was like sobbing because it was just so he delivers stuff really well. And yeah, I know he's kind of a disgraced person at this point in time, but I mean, it is what it is. At the time he was telling these jokes, it was like red hot. One in particular that I really loved is the skit when he's talking about smoking weed with a bunch of teenagers after a show, and how like they've engineered this shit in such a way since the last time he smoked in like the 70s, and it's just it kills me every time. And I even like repeat, and he's driving suddenly, and he's like at a drive-through and he's confused, and it's just the whole scenario. Just I love it. It's so true and good.
I remember that one because he says it's like I'm sitting here taking like big 1970s riffs on it, and all of a sudden. And then
he's like in the circle with the people. He's like, "I'm leaving,"
and they're like, "Whoa, dude! All right, no problem."
I know. I quote it like all the time in various points because it is gold. And I just remember literally crying with my dad.
He's like, I've been staring at this one person too long. I have to actually count. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, look over here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, look at this guy. 1.
It's amazing. Like I've literally done that before, and before I'd even seen the skit, I was just like in a group of people, and then like I'd taken a bong rip, and like I didn't know these people. I was like in my own house, but I felt like I was like nowhere near my own home, and I'm like, okay, I have to get to my room, and it was like a straight shot, but like I couldn't stand up, and I'm like, do I just get up? Do I just leave? Do I say something? And like so as I'm like watching this, I'm like, this is the most real shit I've ever heard. It is. Watch.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm torn. I think I have an answer. I'll list 3. Even though he's fallen off the wagon and become a punchline of his own, and at this point isn't even really relevant anymore. I really liked Dane Cook's first album.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
Oh my god,
and
the Kool-Aid Man.
The Kool-Aid Man is good. I think that my favorite is the Burger King skit.
Yeah.
There isn't really a time I can drive past a Burger King now without going, Whopper! Whopper do I did! I really
Having worked in a drive-thru, I agree.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anybody can identify that. You've been to a drive-thru, you've worked there, like everybody understands how that arrangement works. I really like the What's New Pussycat
Oh, God.
from
John
Mulaney.
John Mulaney. One of the funniest things I've ever heard.
It's the perfect encapsulation of him. So like if you're ever trying to introduce somebody to him, like it's this perfect way to do it because it's basically this kind of off the wall story where he is this weird character in it, and all of it just kind of builds on itself and gets funnier. And is one of the things that makes him the best in my book is like his deliveries are just on point.
Oh my god,
they're on full display there.
Yeah, his line where he's like, because they do 7 What's New Pussycats and they put 1, it's not unusual, and everyone got relaxed.
And he goes,
But when we went back, holy shit!
Bwah, bwah, bwah. What's new, pussy? So that's really good. That was among my first experiences with him. I think I was at like a party with some people that just had it on in the background. I was like, what is this? This is interesting. And I went back and watched the whole set on its own and really liked it. I don't know. There's a couple of Chappelle Show skits in particular that stand out for me, but my number one, probably because of my love of Whose Line Has to Be with Wayne Brady. Where it's like a 4.5 minute thing. It's not really stand up per se. It's just kind of more of a skit. But man, just the fact that Wayne Brady, who's this beloved guy who seems liked by everybody, is just the biggest asshole on the planet, and he's stealing Dave Chappelle's sandwich, and he's killing prostitutes and cops, and like it's just the whole thing, especially because it's so against type that I think it works beautifully.
Yeah. If you do not smoke this, we will have a problem. It's so good.
You guys have named some good ones, like kind of cream of the crop. Like Chappelle is so good. I love John Mulaney. I saw him live, and like he went off on this tangent because a literal piece of fuzz like fell from the ceiling, like from the ceiling onto his head. Like, and you can't stage this shit. It was just like something that happened, and someone like was yelling. They were like, "Something's on your head," and he was like, he freaked out and went off for like 25 minutes. Like, this was not prepared material, and he was just hilarious. Like, some people are just this way. But yeah, I think you guys have named some like really, really good comedians because they,
I have one more that I have to say, and it's probably the oldest stand-up in the book. But Who's on First to this day makes me laugh. They're like, you can find it on YouTube. It's Abbott and Costello's delivery of it and playing off each other. To this day, I have watched that dozens of times, and it still makes me laugh. Just the who's on first, just the way they say it. It's like the guy gets the money. Who? Yeah. Sometimes whose wife gets it. It's like, what? How did you even come up with that?
The exasperation is what sells that bit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really clever.
It's so good.
I heard it for like I had gotten to the point where I basically thought that I'd heard everything because people had mentioned it to me in little bits, and I actually like stopped and watched it one day, and I was like, oh no, this is so much better than how everyone tries to sell it, and it's funny just even in like without context really. So
it's almost like started it and somehow is still funny because like you watch sometimes old comedy and it seems so derivative, so simple, and it's not funny anymore. But that is simple and still cracks me up every time.
Yeah, it's good. There's one other comedian that always just kills me is Bo Burnham. I love his.
I've heard him. Yeah.
I love his music. He's actually a really, really talented musician. But he does this one like country song called "Pandarin." That's just, I love it. It's so cute. It's also a pretty good country song. We're being honest.
I gotta nominate one other one I forgot, and it just seems like a shame not to bring them up. But Key and Peele have several skits that I have found to be really, really good. I love the McCringleberry one, especially if you're a football fan.
Yes,
I love
such a good one.
I love the Gordon Ramsay one, or the the cooking show esque one, where it says like it's only like it's like 80 seconds, and it's really, really good. I'll have to show you guys after the show. And I love the one where they're like all turning on each other in the Mexican standoff. You were at my daughter's wedding.
I got to bring up one more from Key and Peele because you reminded me. It's like one of the first skits they did ever, but the title of the skit is called "I Said Bitch," and it's the two. It's like the Key and Peele, and they have their wives, and it's like, yeah, man, she told me I couldn't go, and I said, "Bitch, you gonna let me go?" And then the other guy, Key says, "Wait a minute, you actually called your wife a bitch?" "Yeah, man, I know what's up." And then the wives walk in, and they're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, honey? Yeah, no, we're just hanging out." Like, they're trying to be all nice to their wives. And then they keep telling stories, but they keep progressively getting farther and farther away from their wives, and their wives keep finding them. And then, like, look around. It's like, yeah, I told her. And they look around and go, "I said, bitch." It's funny. You got to watch it to get the whole story, but it's really good.
That's a popular one in this household. And the last shout out I'll give is if you guys haven't seen John Mulaney and Nick Kroll in Oh Hello, I strongly recommend you check it out. It's basically the two of them are pretending to be old Jewish men in character the whole time, and they bring on some other comedian or other celebrity as a third person who basically has to play straight man for them, and it's all pretty much improvised.
That sounds great.
So to kind of play off of your story about the fuzz, I think Mulaney's got improv chops because the two of them in that show are both really good at just taking things and spinning them in character into whatever the hell.
That's amazing. That's like truly, I'm super impressed by stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
So, my turn.
We love comedy here, everyone.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I know.
I could talk about stand-up comedy all day.
I could too.
Robin Williams' golf skit, if you haven't seen that.
That's a good one. I almost mentioned that one, but I had too many others.
Yeah. There's so many good ones.
Do it 18 times!
No, you know, with a fucked up stick.
This is a weird one, but what the hell? I'm not going to skip it. Number 14. What inanimate object would be the most annoying if it played loud, upbeat music while being used?
I was going to say a dildo.
I was going to think that you were going to say that, yes. I had the same thought.
Like, yeah.
It was like, leave me alone, I'm trying to focus.
Because in some points, I think that could be entertaining and kind of funny. But yeah, most opportunities that you are using it, you probably don't want really annoying music playing from it.
Especially if anybody finds out that that's what that does, because then it's going to be an announcement every single time it's used. So that's like, oh boy, there it is.
Yeah, especially in a roommate situation. Yeah.
Yeah, very bad.
I'm gonna say the worst thing is a watch. Every single time you look at your watch, boom, 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 boom. Oh God! I looked at the time and it's going off.
That would be pretty bad.
It'd be so annoying.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine like an object in particular. I mean, things that you have to wear all the time, like glasses or something, could certainly be high up there. Any place where you're supposed to be quiet. So I was thinking like a library card, but that's kind of too cutesy as an answer.
That's like super antiquated. I like it.
Yeah, what's a library card? What's a
Yeah.
library?
The library.
Ah,
What?
shit.
Well, she's not an inanimate object, but imagine if Feely, on top of being the most annoying cat in the world, also just like played music as she ran through the house. It'd be the worst thing in the entire universe, I
Yeah.
must say.
Or only when she is inanimate, so when she's a loaf, music comes out of her. You actually want her to get up and leave, but you don't. But you
Yeah,
do.
When she turns in her bread forms.
I'm trying to figure out like what the most loud, upbeat music annoyance would be. The first thing that pops in my head was like when the Saints come marching in, like a really rousing Nolan style big band
I
production.
was thinking Miley Cyrus Party in the USA.
Yeah, I thought about Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah,
as much
you know,
as I love it, Strong Bad singing his techno song would be really bad on repeat.
oh,
Well,
that'd be
especially when you
very
get to
bad.
the heavy part. Yeah, the system
That'd be
is
so
down.
bad.
The system is down. All right, a shorter one because there's not a lot of depth in that one. But go ahead, Michelle.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna roll a 47.
47. What mythical creature do you wish actually existed?
Oh.
A Suns championship.
I'm gonna say a genie of the lamp. It'd be really nice to have 3 wishes.
Yeah, but then there's a whole lot of questions there. Like, how many are there? Are they their own race? Do they have their own freedoms and rights? Are they really just slaves? There
Look,
are all
if
the questions.
Here's the deal: if I could have an Aladdin-style genie, first
Yeah.
of all, Robin Williams' voice and acting,
Yeah.
Dan Castellaneta, either one, cool. Second of all, Genie totally kept his powers after he was freed. Wish one, you're free. You
Yeah,
can hang out. Let's be friends.
And it feels like a big plot hole, right? It's like this should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah. It's
And
like,
it just
wait a minute,
makes-
so I can have 3 wishes, or I can free you, and you can give me unlimited wishes.
It makes
Cool, I'm gonna free you.
Aladdin seem like a total bitch. Like,
Doesn't it?
yeah. Okay, I think it might be kind of cool if like centaurs were real. That would be
Yeah.
weird though. But like, it
You
can
can't
be
ride them.
You can't ride them.
No, I feel like that'd be disrespectful unless
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I'm really drunk and you're helping me out.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Well, then maybe a Pegasus would be rad.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flying horse.
Flying
and-
horse.
Unicorn, who cares? Like, they're
I mean, my daughter cares.
true.
Sure,
But
but
like Pegasus, I mean, you show her the new hotness of a Pegasus,
That's
she'd
true.
throw a unicorn out the window. Who
A
cares?
unicorn with wings. There you go.
Exactly. That's
Pretty
all
much.
we need.
because what does the
Yeah.
unicorn do? Glitter, rainbow
Yeah.
trails. I don't.
I feel like it does have some powers, but
Depends
I
on which
yeah,
myth you're talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, and I sure as hell don't want leprechauns.
Yeah, they're mischievous things.
I don't
No,
want
they're
that.
awful. There's a lot of things you don't want to be real, like krakens. I have no reason for those to be real. I don't.
Oh, Fae? No, thank you. They're too tricky.
Tricky
Trixie.
bastards.
Yeah,
I think a sphinx being real would be cool.
that would
They
be
say
pretty neat.
riddles.
I mean, just something giant sitting out in Egypt asking puzzles and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That would be pretty tight.
I'm gonna say mermaid, but I want like not the
Ooh.
traditional mermaid, the one that like is sort of like a siren.
I love that idea.
Like those are interesting to me, but I don't actually want them to be real.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah, so that everybody who goes out to sea just gets lured in and then murdered against the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, some of the ones that don't do that are still like sort of tricksterlish. But mermaids could be cool. They could live underwater. You could join them sometimes. Sometimes they would come out on the land with feet, and then you would get brainwashed into liking another one with feet.
That'd be cool.
Wait, this is just Little Mermaid. Well, shit.
Well,
And you can't have sex
Yeah.
with them, though.
We don't know that
Well,
until they're real.
there's a little fish.
Anatomy.
That's what the ears are for, Dave.
Oh god, it's always funny. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in fandom, if there are 2 characters with feet, human people, just people you like in a show or a game that you are shipping, and you go to fanfiction.net, actually no one goes to fanfiction.net. If you go to Archive of Our Own and you type in those characters' names, 100% of the time you're going to see a mermaid alternate universe version of that. And I don't know why it's a thing. People are obsessed with mermaids. But then it's like, okay, so you're writing this fic because you want these two characters to bone, but they're mermaids. How do they bone? Someone explain this to me. And if they're two male mermaids, please explain this to me. There are a lot of issues with mermaid sex that I have discussed with many a person in my day. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
What is that website and what?
Oh, so
Don't do this, Dave.
No, it's fine. I wasn't actually wondering. It was just more of a what?
So it's called Archive of Our Own.
No, I got that.
Okay, yeah, and it's basically a spot where people dump all their fan fiction. And what's very fun to do is if you go into the Harry Potter area, which is by far the largest section, you can just like type in your name and like see like how you've been self-inserted as like random characters in like weird Harry Potter fanfic. It's pretty funny. Like there's absolutely a Dave in there and he's doing some shit.
Awesome.
With Draco. Like it's who knows.
I am gonna have to, if I visit that, I'm gonna have to turn on incognito mode, I think.
No, I mean you can select it so you don't see things explicit. Like it's not inherently like super porny, but if you want to, you can make it so.
Anything, if you want it to be, it can be porn.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and that's very much true with that website. But anyway, I digress. Mermaids.
I think you're overthinking mermaids. I think mermaids are actually simple, and it's even more simple when it's two of them because there are no parts to interact with whatsoever. So it's just all top-heavy making out, and people like mermaids because they're already half naked anyways.
Yeah, that's true. But if it's male and female, do they have eggs? Like they just like deposit eggs into the water? Is that how it works?
Maybe there's no eggs whatsoever, so you can have sex without fear of repopulating. I don't know.
Is it like dolphins? I don't see, Chris. I don't know. Maybe I'm complicating it. Maybe it's actually pretty complex.
But see, if they were real, we could find out what it was, whatever the answer is. We don't know. But they're not real, so we don't know.
That's true.
And if you had a genie, you could just ask him to make a mermaid.
Yeah. Hey, Genie,
tell me specifications.
Tell me how mermaids fuck. That's one of your wishes? Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I'm freeing you next, so it's cool.
More than anything in the world.
I'll free you later, Genie, but first.
Is this me next?
Yes.
All right, 55.
55.
55. Shiggity, what?
Speaking of mermaid sex, what are you interested in that most people aren't?
Well, you answered already right there what you just said. So next.
Honestly, yeah, I'm good. It's your turn.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. What am I interested in that most people aren't?
I have an answer for this one.
I have an answer, and I think it's really weird. I am a nerd and enjoy maps. I enjoy looking at different maps and seeing how, like, different, like, maybe roads connect, different terrains change over time. Like, I can honestly sit on Google Maps and switch to the satellite view and just, like, look how different terrains are, how different cities are laid out. It is really boring, but awesome.
That's really fucking dorky. I like it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, do you do the street view thing, or do you like to be like bird's eye?
Yeah, bird's eye. Street view gets too insular. Like I'll do street view sometimes on places I have been to because it's like, yeah, I remember that. This is where I went at X time. Like I went to a Ray's Pizza in New York last time I was there at like 3 a.m. So I pulled up the street view of just like see what was around there because it was dark yeah. But yeah, overall it's bird's view.
That's a good one.
I'm interested in video game music. Anybody who's been to the site or has listened to this podcast probably has figured that out. It's been used in our music bumpers and a whole bunch of other spots.
Or
and I think
20 years.
It's nowhere near as niche as it was 20 years ago. It's still not mainstream by any means. I mean, you can now start buying some soundtracks on like iTunes and the like in ways that just weren't possible even 10, 15 years ago. And people are just enjoying soundtracks more in general as they've gotten more mainstream, as they've gotten more produced and taken like full symphonies as opposed to like the 8-bit beeps and bloops from back in the day. But I still think it's certainly in the minority to say that like, yeah, I have thousands of video game soundtracks. Yeah.
That's definitely a good one.
Yeah.
I already gave mine, but I mean, everyone already knows that I'm into like weird, obscure music. That's the only other thing I have.
Recordings.
And field record, yeah, that's true. That's something that not a lot of people know or really care about. I mean, I think people have bumped into field recordings like, oh, I'm listening to this thing to help me sleep, and it's like the ocean or whatever. That's a field recording, but I think people don't really think of them in those terms. And like, wow, somebody actually made this you know, as like a soundscape or something. But
I can say I'm totally into ASMR as well. People think that like I've tried to kind of explain it to Courtney, and she doesn't get it at all. I'm just like, I don't know. It just you
it's a
can't describe
sensory
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
You either get it or you don't. There's really no way to
Yeah.
explain it.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you kind of break it down, like you don't get like the tingles of it. It seems totally fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like somebody's just whispering to you and like tapping stuff, and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that?
I get that way over particular chord progressions in music.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand it. I don't really necessarily have it with other sounds. It's like specifically music, but I totally know what that's like. It's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like I've been to symphonies before, and it's just like, oh no, like it's too much. Like it's kind of like a overstimulation kind of an experience.
I rolled a 44. This will be a quick one, so the fact that it's bad won't really matter. What's your cure for hiccups?
I love this. It's pickle juice.
I've heard of that before. I didn't know anybody actually ever did that, but so for some reason, I'm not surprised you do.
I love pickle juice so much. I put in everything basically. I actually just had some earlier today, but
Throw up in my mouth.
what really?
I hate pickles. Hate
what?
them.
I like pickle
Hate
juice,
them.
but I don't ever go out of my way to drink it. If I have like a little bit of extra drops off a pickle, I'm like, cool.
Well, what's really interesting is like I drink it. I'm not like drinking it straight, but I
Well,
enjoy it, and I eat pickles a lot. But it works like when I have hiccups, I go straight to the fridge, drink a little bit of pickle juice, and it literally just goes away every single time. And there is some kind of chemical thing that I think is the answer as to why, but yeah, works every time.
I don't get hiccups.
I can't remember the last time I had hiccups.
What?
I honestly can't.
I think I've had hiccups like 3 times in a decade.
Oh my god.
I sometimes, if I'm like clearing my throat or coughing too much, sometimes I will get a little bit of hiccup when I cough, but that's it. Like I can't remember the last time I've had hiccups and can't get rid of them.
What are the
It's-
causes of hiccups? I get them not a ton, but a fair amount, and they're kind
It's-
of violent. It's not
it's a
great.
It's a spasm in your diaphragm, so I don't know.
Sometimes it's eating too quickly.
Oh, that would explain it.
So for some
Yeah.
people, if they're just chowing down, they're not giving the food the proper time to digest, they're not chewing it enough, etc.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
creates those pockets.
I eat exceptionally fast, so there's that.
And I don't. I'm relatively slow,
Yeah.
methodical. When I do, I hold my breath, and they're gone quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have much of one because I don't really get them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like
Interesting.
like where are you ticklish? And I'm like, I'm really not.
Yeah.
Oh
Like-
God.
Occasionally
I-
on the insoles of my feet, if I'm already in a good mood and I happen to be sensitive, maybe you get something out of me like a squirm, but I'm really not ticklish.
Yeah.
I need Jason in the chin the other day because he accidentally tickled me, and I was just like, I kind of warned him. I was like, I'm very ticklish. This is going to be an issue, and he's just like proceeded, and I just like need him right in the chin. I felt so bad.
No, he deserved it.
Yeah, probably.
All right, Michelle, roll it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, my job.
I keep forgetting this is my responsibility occasionally. 79.
I mean, I figure it's more fun than if I just roll it every time.
It's true.
Okay, what artist or band do you always recommend when someone asks for a music recommendation? Now, Michelle, I know no one's ever asked you for a music recommendation, but let's
Never, ever.
pretend like in a hypothetical situation this could happen.
Oh my god. It really depends on the person. There's really no one band that I'm just like, oh my god, you have to listen to them, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, like my taste is weird and very varied. So it's like there's no point in me being like Neutral Milk Hotel, because I know like 95% of the people I talk to about it, first of all, never heard of them. Second of all, probably will hate them. So it's like I have to be really judicious in who I recommend that kind of stuff to. But I'm gonna have to think about this for a sec.
Yeah.
I'm stalling.
This is Michelle's most difficult question she's ever been asked in
It's
life.
a hard
pretty
one.
much.
Yeah.
God, it is a difficult one for me too, actually, because it does depend on who you're talking to. So I think the ones I'd go to is if you like heavy, like really like kind of metal music, Avenged Sevenfold would be one I pick because I've always liked them. If you like kind of off the wall weird stuff,
Wait,
it's
who was
Bloodhound
it?
Gang, Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh, Avenged Sevenfold.
Off the wall, like really weird, would be Bloodhound Gang because I love them.
I would never recommend them to anybody.
I love them. You
I'm
can't
so-
take them
I'm
off
so
their
torn
pocket.
because like I feel like their music just became completely inappropriate like 5 years ago. But now at this point, like everybody's so easily offended, it's like you might as well be as offensive as possible. So at this point, I think they're almost back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
It's I don't know, and I haven't. I mean, the main albums that I know are from 2000 and 2005, so it's been a long time.
It's a different
But-
time. But now at this point,
Yeah.
if you're going to be offensive, you might as well be like indiscriminately offensive.
Mhm.
Go
Yeah.
for it. Hit everybody.
And then if I have to make a recommendation to somebody that's just a general, I don't know who you are, but who's my favorite band, I'd probably go with like Muse or something like that.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, like you said, it just depends on the person, and I'm really specific about how I cater recommendations because I feel like my reputation's on the line every single time. So I don't dare
Yeah.
recommend something that someone's not going to like because I would feel like a piece of shit. It's kind of a neurosis I have, neurosi, whatever. Generically, I feel like you could go something safe like the Beach Boys,
Yeah.
a group
Very
that's got
good.
basic
also
hits
like-
with good harmonies, with some different kind of styles to their music. Like a California
mean-
Dreaming is, well, a cover, very different than like a Surfing USA.
I mean, that's true, but also if someone has not heard of the Beach Boys, they can go put their head in the sand because, like, what the hell?
Sand.
I know. Isn't that cute? It's like recommending the Beatles. It's like, come on.
The truth is, how
Yeah.
often has this ever happened? Unless you're so like Michelle, I joked in the intro. I bet you actually have people who occasionally come up and ask you about stuff like this because of your
All the time.
interests. But for
All the
me,
time.
I can't remember the last time somebody just walked up to me and was like, "Hey, I need some music to listen to. What you got?"
Yeah.
Because that's what Spotify is for. Spotify is for, "Hey, I like this band. What do you have that's like them?"
Their Discover feature is amazing.
Mhm.
Like
Pretty
they are still pulling out shit that I've never heard of, and I'm like, this is exactly what I want. Like, how did you know? And they're like, we know because we watch everything you do. How fun! I think I would probably just because of the variation and because he's amazing, I'd probably recommend Sufjan Stevens to pretty much anyone.
Oh, really?
It's like, yeah, because it's like, okay, well, if you're super religious, it sounds like he's singing about Jesus and he's loving God, and they're like, that's cool. But if you're gay, you're like, well, clearly this is super gay. Or if you're neither of those things, it's still just like really beautiful and like amazingly put together music. So yeah.
And if you're agnostic, it sounds like he's singing about the lack of a god.
I mean, there's definitely the struggle there, and it's very complicated, his relationship with God and stuff. But he's amazing. I think that's probably who I'd recommend.
Actually, now I'm curious, Michelle. What if I recommended Imagine Dragons to you? What do you think of them?
You know, people are very quick to be like, "Oh my God, they're the worst." I like a lot of their songs.
Me too.
Whatever.
I like them a lot.
I think they suck live.
Yeah,
That's
really?
Probably
I haven't seen them
true.
live.
There was one particular SNL appearance where I thought they were just absolute garbage. I've heard their energy is good, which helps in some ways, but
Yeah.
the quality of their music does not translate well from studio to show.
That's a shame.
That's crazy because Courtney saw them live and said they were just as good when she saw them.
Huh.
I don't know.
Maybe they had an
I
off
don't know.
night when I happened to catch them because I haven't seen a ton of their
Maybe.
work live, so it certainly could
Maybe.
be like small sample size. But I love Monster. I think Friction's
Yeah.
funny, even though it's been used in way too many trailers. I
I
still think it's a good
know!
song.
It's catchy. I love
Radioactive
I like it a lot.
is overplayed but fine.
Yes.
it.
Have you heard?
It's good.
Have you heard the new one, Zero, by them?
I think so.
I think I'd recognize it if
It's-
I heard. I think I've heard it once.
It's at the end of Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet,
I never saw it.
and it's actually a strangely dark song if you read the lyrics. So
Huh.
go check it out.
All right, there's your recommendation.
Yay!
Roll,
All right,
Dave.
roll. I got a 63.
Oh, 63. I don't know if we're going to have a good answer for this without going to the think tank, but what the hell? What's the funniest actual name you've heard of someone having?
Somebody, my friend, just posted one because she works for Wells Fargo and she just gets weird cases from people all the time. But here, let me see what she gave us today. It was pretty great. Oh, I don't know where it is.
While Michelle looks that up, I can give you one that may not be real. I can't confirm if it was real, and one that I do know is real for sure.
Okay.
One that I've heard about, but I can't confirm was real, was a name that was spelled L-A''A, and it was pronounced Ladasha.
I heard about that, actually.
Because the dash isn't silent. And I'm just like, oh God, Oh my God, what? So I don't know if that's
Lot.
real. I don't know if that's real or not. I've heard someone mention it, but the name I can confirm is real. That when I was working at a different bank years ago, there was a couple that renamed their names legally to Padme and Amidala Skywalker, or
Oh my God.
Padme and Anakin Skywalker.
Well, that doesn't look good in retrospect.
Nope.
No, it
And then
doesn't.
of course had a child and opened up an account under Luke Skywalker's name.
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, I
So-
understand liking something quite a bit, but don't do that to your kids.
Yeah,
I
don't ever.
know,
do
it's
that.
so bad.
Like he has to grow up and his name is literally Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it's bad. Nothing about that is good.
And
That
imagine take your
child.
dad to school day. This is my
There's
dad,
something-
Anakin. Yes, I know.
That poor child's
I
gonna
know.
have neuroses.
There's something I think it was John Oliver did something along those lines where it's like never name your kid after a character until they've completed their arc.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause-
Khaleesi.
Yeah, I was saying
Yes.
those Daenerys ones are not looking super good right now.
No, and it's like if you watch the show, you should have known. Come on.
You shouldn't
Anyway.
name anybody that anyways, because everyone's gonna know what it's from, and like it's either gonna know and it's gonna be dumb, or they're not gonna know and it's gonna be dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I can't find any of these names. Though when I went to middle school with a girl. Wait, what was the question exactly?
What's the funniest actual name you've heard of
Oh.
someone having?
Okay, and this works. Her name was Willow. Her middle name was Anna or Anna, and her last name was Hill. Willow Anna Hill.
I
All right.
mean,
I'm actually okay with that because it's not slap you in the face with it. Technically.
Yeah.
Like
It's
Anakin
very
Skywalker is, yeah.
like Willow Hill's still not great, but again, it's not just like blaring
Yeah.
klaxons of rah, rah,
Mhm.
rah,
Yeah,
rah,
it's only
dumb.
if you look at the full name that you're like, oh. But even then, it's not super obvious.
I
You're
think-
like, oh, Anna.
As I say, most people would probably read Anna first. That's why I thought you were gonna be like Willow Anna Dale or something, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what that means
Yeah.
either, you know. But I think the funniest actual name I've ever heard of somebody having is Sufjan Stevens. My turn.
Bazing.
That's a one. Where did the number go?
Yikes.
Sufjan.
It's his real name.
Of course, he ended up being like he is too.
Oh, I know. It couldn't have been some, like, I don't know.
If there are still people that cling to the notion that being gay is a choice, I would present to you that someone having the name of Sufjan and it being this weird creative genius was definitely not a choice. It was foisted upon him at birth. I don't want to do number 41. I'm vetoing it. I'm invoking my first veto because
What was
the
it?
question is, what's the most creative use of emojis you've ever seen?
Nope.
Oh.
So
I see it in memes occasionally. I will see real good stuff. The good shit one with like the hand.
I
and
know,
it's like
which is great,
100.
except now it's like also like a hate
It's
crime
white power.
symbol. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
It's been
Nothing
ruined.
is sacred. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is interesting, but it's probably going to take us a minute to go in the tank again. Number 88 is the second roll I got after vetoing that. What's the most depressing meal you've eaten?
Well, I can. I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but I don't like food that's been left over for a long time doesn't bother me. Like some people are freaked out after like 2 days. I will eat food as long as it's like it smells fine. I'll eat it if it's been in the fridge for a week or two. I don't have a problem.
Oh, Dave, no.
I
That
never
is
have gotten sick.
depressing. It's like
I've
all
never gotten sick.
sad and wilted.
I've never gotten sick off of it.
I don't like that.
But
That's gross.
so- yeah, I can't think of a particular one, but I know like some people look at that as it's really bad. So I'll answer that way.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking like some kind of meal I've had with like a partner who we were like fighting or something, and then we're just like eating like frozen pizza or something shitty like that. That sounds pretty depressing, right? I'm sure it's happened. I don't know. I can't think of a specific instance, but
I don't know that I have a specific one either, but the most depressing ones generally come from times where I've been too busy or put it off.
Mhm.
And I know there have also been times where Michelle has gone through this, where I was like, I had like 3 tortillas for lunch.
yeah, oh God.
I knew I needed to eat something, and I was on the run, and I'm like, well, I should have planned better, or rearranged some stuff so I could just have an actual meal, but instead I'm going to be doing this now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Close enough. Michelle's turn.
Miss Michelle's turn.
Oh, yeah, I always forget. 65. We're really dancing around the 60s here.
Uh-huh. What TV show character would it be the most fun to change places with for a week?
TV show character?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Walter White.
No.
No.
There's a part of me that says Rick Sanchez, but I'm wrong. But that's not it. Like initial thought, I was like, wow, that'd be really cool to have all that technology and knowledge.
Want to be
But
a
no, I don't want
raging
that.
alcoholic?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Hates his
That's
family.
the issue.
Yeah.
So it's not him.
Huh.
I would want to be
Okay.
Mabel Pines from the show that Gravity Falls.
I don't know that show well enough. I know of it,
What?
but
Oh, it's so good. She's just
Yeah, I've heard
very
it is.
carefree, and I wish my childhood was like that. Oh my god, just like very, like free spirited and like she's very true to herself despite being like 13 when it's usually a really weird time of your life. She's just like, yeah, a cool chick.
I would say honestly is one of two. One, Bob Belcher. He seems like he just has crazy stuff happen to him, but he loves life. So
You want to be a middle-aged man who
dude,
works
have you seen the stuff he gets into and just like how like overall happy he is? There's
He is
nothing wrong
happy.
with it. There's
He's
nothing wrong with
happy,
it.
but that's who you
Or on the other side of that
Okay.
would be Ed Mercer from The Orville, being a captain of a starship. Sounds
Oh,
pretty
there
cool.
we go. That's pretty sweet.
I went like the escapism route, similar to what Michelle did here. My first thought was like Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I was like, actually, no, their lives were pretty miserable most of the time. All the other kids
That's
were
true.
jackasses, and they all died by 25, and so I don't know if that's really the best choice. But it's only for a week. How bad could 1 week get? And then I was like, what if I could be exploitative? You know, like take the Biff Tannen approach and just abuse the hell out of a week somehow. And I couldn't think of a character that would fit that bill. And then I was like, well, Superman was on a TV show. So you could do that, you know, but maybe
Yeah.
like the Smallville one and not like the Lois and Clark one. But Superman's kind of a tool. So my answer is I don't know. It's boring, but
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one.
I don't even mind engaging in like what ifs. I mean, we have a whole segment built around that sort of like this butt is akin to that. This is the type of what if I don't like whatsoever because it doesn't. There's no meaning behind it. I understand it. I know qualms with it for other people, but to me, I don't engage with this kind of stuff at all. So sorry,
Yeah.
everybody. Cop out.
Eh,
All right. My roll
Yep.
is 70.
Right.
We're just going up the chain here.
All right. Well, we'll see. If you were a ghost and could possess people, what would you make them do?
I'd make them cook breakfast in their underwear at like 2 a.m.
Got him.
No.
Nailed it.
I honestly, I couldn't think of anything that I would make a person do unless I want to like try to turn it into like a charitable thing. Like,
I would turn Sufjan Stevens on every single speaker.
oh no, I thought that sentence was gonna stop and just say I would turn Sufjan Stevens on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Just
that's
turn-
also not
Possess him
wrong.
and just turn him on.
It would take a
That's
ghost,
not wrong.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd probably be a male ghost, but yeah, I mean, sure. He doesn't have to know my gender.
Yeah, I can't think of anything I'd want to do. Like, I heard a story where apparently Mackenzie Bezos is donating like half of her money that she got from the divorce to charity, and so like I'd almost want to like go into like some really wealthy person who's a known asshole and like make them go withdraw a bunch of money and go give it to a charity.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to give you like a humanitarian answer, like I would possess Hitler and make him blow his brains out. But if you wanted to be
I
a
didn't go
vengeful
there at
ghost,
all.
no. But if you're a vengeful ghost, I think it'd be funny to make like somebody that you hate have sex with the person they hate the most.
But wouldn't you need two ghosts for that?
No. You're just really convincing as the person you're taking over. Like,
I
I know we
guess.
haven't seen eye to eye, but it's because I respect you so goddamn much. I just couldn't tell you how I felt the whole time. And they're like, oh, okay. And that's all it takes is that moment of hesitation. And they have to live with that forever.
would be real weird. And then you're like in their body when they're fucking them. I don't know how I feel about any
And
of that.
how much do you experience? Is it any? Is it a lot? I have no idea. Again, I'm not a ghost.
Do ghosts feel anything?
Is Patrick Swayze dead? Probably. I've never seen him.
Let me go ask Casper.
Listen, I feel like we're just asking more questions in this segment than we're
Move on.
answering them.
Yeah. Well, this one's a tough one because we don't have a lot of parameters to work with, you know?
That's true.
And you could be like, I'll possess a bank vault guard and make him give me the money. And you're like, all right, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
but you're dead. So who cares?
Yeah. What are you going to spend it on? Nothing.
I'm gonna give it to my family.
My inheritance.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. We jumped up to 16, which is at least separate from the other ones we've been doing recently. How would your country change if everyone, regardless of age, could vote? So, how would America change if everyone, regardless of age, could vote?
I don't think that much.
Wouldn't change very much because if you're 3, you're not going to the polls.
And even if you were going to the polls, you're voting the way your parents tell you to.
Mm-hmm.
So
it would increase. You might get a slightly more left-leaning country because you would catch people that are like 15 to 18 that are starting to form their own opinions that don't always rather jive with their parents on certain ways. But
yeah, I don't think it would change much at all.
Yeah,
I remember I voted for George Bush in the '92 election when I was 7 because the school had an election where you could do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have any clue. I know that's who my family was voting for, so I'm sure that's why I did it because I had nothing else to go on.
Yep.
So I don't think it would change a whole lot. But if people had, wildly disparate voting ages in their country, maybe there's more to that question. All right, we are in the lightning round phase. Michelle, go. 7. What are you currently worried about? Well, so much for the lightning round.
Ooh. So this is going to get kind of weird. But so I'm in the termination stage of my therapy, which I've been doing for 2 years, which is awesome. And I'm really excited about the prospect of not having to go every other week. But I kind of just feel like as we're in this phase, we're talking about stuff and and ways to cope and deal with certain issues that may come up, or if I have anxiety or depression, how am I going to deal with those things? I can't rely on my therapist anymore. And as we're going through these things, I'm like, am I ready? And then I think about it and I'm like, I am. I've done the work. I have the tools, I have the resources, but I just kind of feel like I'm acting out in some weird way, and other things are popping up, and weird insecurities are now becoming more present, and I'm just so that's kind of what I've been worried about. It's kind of a weird, heavy one, but it's just self-growth it's not a straight line. It's just kind of weird and wild, and it's just, I don't really know if I'm super prepared yet, but I know that I have everything I need. I just don't know if I'm ready, and it's scary. That's what I'm worried about.
It's funny. I remember 20 years ago when I was a young, teenager-ish, I'd have been like, therapy, how stupid, blah, blah, blah. Dude, right? I respect everybody who can admit to themselves to go and actually work on themselves, because it's a big deal.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's even with people who don't have trauma from when they were kids, who go, it's there are a lot of really great coping mechanisms that they teach you when you go, and it's awesome.
The best thing I've ever gotten out of a therapy session for me is the idea of looking at something from a different point of view.
Yeah.
That is something I couldn't have had in another way. So yeah. Anyway, nobody wants to hear about me and my worrying about a third child. So Chris.
I think that is something that the world needs to hear about, because that sounds really fucking scary.
Financial things and will you ever actually have a life back things and.
Yes. I feel like so far I've done pretty well having a life with 2 kids.
That's good.
So far, but it's a worry financially. It's stupidly a worry of how I'm going to fit 3 kids in the back of seat of the car. How I'm going to get 3 car seats? I don't know.
Well, no, that feels like a very practical concern. It's you have situated your life for 2 children, and you're going to have to recalibrate, and that may involve more money and more musical chairs, and that's something worth being concerned about.
My dining room table has 4 chairs. I don't know what I'm going to do about that.
You're gonna stand, son.
Yep, pretty much.
And even though
When,
this is kind of heavy, it's also like the last one didn't go well. And so for
Mhm.
me, if I were in your shoes, I would be concerned about that in general, but also just up until my child was born, I'd be worried about, is it going to be healthy? Is it going to be are there going to be any
yeah.
complications? Is it going to be, that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah.
That gets to me too.
I
I haven't gone
already, yeah,
through
already
it, but
gone
I
through
know it will.
already gone through all that, but so far everything's flying clearly. Everything has been healthy and checking the boxes properly. So
That's good. That's good.
Mine are
yeah.
primarily work related, and
I
that's
get
sort of
that.
been the case for the last 9 months. I mean, there was always an element of that, but there were usually other things that were higher up, family issues or whatever. And that's because there's a hiring switch going on right now. Although I think I've filled the position well, I'm actually pretty excited about the prospects of that. But that's always kind of a thing. It's always something. There's very rarely a day where it's not something, and that's part of the nature of the job. So, yeah.
yeah,
Dave.
I feel the same. I feel the same work stuff too in a different way, but yeah, I know, understand the work worry. I got 22.
On Sundays I can turn it off because there's no paper. So even if there is something that's happening, I can deal with it Monday. So Sunday's the one day I can be like, all right, whatever, I'm not thinking about it. 22 is, what's something that will always be in fashion no matter how much time passes? Kindness.
Jeans. Oh.
Can I roll again?
If you'd like to veto, you haven't used yours yet.
I would like to veto because that's whatever.
This is not a lightning round appropriate question.
I'm sorry. 60.
60. Oh, 66. 60. All right. Maybe we'll end on this because it goes full circle anyways and we're up on time. Do you think that children born today will have better or worse lives than their parents?
That's a
I
hard one.
I tend to think, and maybe this is the optimist in me, that every generation will be slightly better than the previous one because we can take things that we've learned from the previous one and make it better. And I mean, it depends on what you call better sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the way, for the most part, it will be better. There's just to be different.
I just really worried about, so like I agree for the most part. I especially think like socially, like sociologically, I agree. But if I look at like our environment, I'm like, are we just gonna like kill everything into extinction? And are we gonna have like trees and forests and like how much longer does humanity have on this earth? Like I go through these weird little phases and I'm like, will our children even like know what certain things are that we just took for granted as kids? And it's like, I don't know. I think that it's a really loaded question, and I think it's going to be better in some ways and a lot worse in others. And it's just, yeah.
I think technologically the answer is an easy yes, and that's just sort of inherent to the process of technology as it is. I mean, imagining a world without the internet now is hard for me, and I went through the change.
Yeah.
Obviously, kids being born into it now have no idea. That's true of, television for a previous generation and radio before that and so on and so forth. I think it's awfully cool that people are almost not dying from polio anymore.
Yeah.
Or measles or, things that are helping extend life greatly. Because I made the Little House on the Prairie reference earlier. I mean, it's amazing how life expectancy has just gone through the roof in the last century.
Mm-hmm.
So in those senses, medically, technologically, I think the answer is yes. I don't spend a ton of time worrying about the long-term implications. Maybe I should more. I understand where Michelle's coming from, and I do think about it from time to time, but I'm like, I'll probably be dead before that matters, which is selfish, I admit. And if I'm thinking about my kids, maybe that conversation changes, but it's also like, I don't think we can screw things up that badly that quickly. We're on a bad track right now, and some of the projections are moving up even further, but I don't know. So I think overall, yeah, I think they'll be better. I think most of the time it's better. Like you said, there's just so many ways that it happens. I'd like to think there's going to be a time in our kids' generation where they don't know what cancer is anymore.
Mm-hmm. And it's little things I think our kids are going to have to experience. Is I don't honestly know if my kids are going to ever have to drive a car, which I think is kind of awesome because the idea of getting in a car accident is going to be nil. I think in about 20 years when self-driving cars are prevalent.
I hope so.
And I think that's so cool to think that I potentially never have to worry about my kid driving drunk, ever. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's weird that like 10 years ago, the whole thought to me still was sort of this like Jetson-esque, flying cars are the future. And I'm sure they are to some degree, but they'll probably be automatic flying cars, self-driving flying cars. And that's not something I foresaw. I didn't think to myself like, oh, I'll just ride in the car and it'll drive for me and I'll be able to like read or do whatever I want and not have to worry about it. That's neat.
Yep. Yeah, it's I think it's going to be there's going to be a technological advancement. I think for the most part it's people are going to go kicking and screaming it, but socially I think the next generation will make those changes that should happen. You know, I think there's going to be a lot less prejudices going forward with our generation and the next. And it's just it takes time and people go kicking and screaming and there's always going to be a contingent of people that suck and are bigoted. But
yeah, I mean, and if we think about the change that's been enacted since when we were young versus now, it's actually huge. And so, of course, there's going to be, I mean, I think that where we're at now is really extreme. I don't mean that in like a bad way. I just mean like going from where we were to now is crazy. And so there's always going to be a reaction to the change, and then you eventually kind of go in the middle, and then you move forward and you kind of keep pushing boundaries from there. That's how it works. So right now we're kind of seeing a reactionary phase, right? And so it seems really scary and like, oh my God, like what's going to happen for like women's rights and like, you know, abortion, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I think ultimately, like it seems scary now, but ultimately it's a trajectory upwards socially. So I don't feel as like terrified as maybe some people do. And they have every right to be scared for right now. But I think looking forward ahead in like years and years and generations, I think it's going to be much better.
I think that what's nice about the world getting smaller and smaller is that, yeah, there's assholes, and we've lost some romantic notions like the idea of having a pen pal from a foreign country. Ooh, you can write them letters and see what things are like in Ecuador, and now it's like any asshole on Twitter could be from any country, and you can interact with them in like 4 seconds. So, I mean, there are some things that maybe we'll look back on in 20 years and go, oh, we're going to be the grumpy old people who hate on everything, but overall, I think the world getting smaller is better because it allows people to share more experiences, to get different points of view, to get that perspective you guys mentioned before. It's hard for me to imagine future generations being worse off, unless the planet's gone.
Yeah,
right.
that is a caveat.
That's my concern.
If the planet's gone, obviously we reserve the right to rescind everything we just said because...
But we'll be dead.
Yeah, we'll either be on Mars or dead. And I'm not optimistic about Mars because it's taken us a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And it won't fit all of us.
No, it's not going to
It's
do that.
significantly smaller.
Yes. And as much as we're trying to get space pioneered with the individual level or the privatized level, we're not really getting very fast anywhere. It's not happening. So ends the Tumblr Not Tumblr questionnaire and the show.
Woo!
We'll have to decide if Chris lied about everything he said.
I did a good job making up convincing questions that were fake, I think, if I was. Especially at that time, I made up a question that I hated and then replaced with a different question.
It's your schizophrenia coming out, Chris.
Exactly. Let's do this one. No, I hate that one. So that's the end of this episode. In between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media. It's Facebook and Twitter at Team Objection. It's objectionnetwork@gmail.com to send emails to us. That's me and her and him. And finally, youtube.com/Objection Network for new videos 7 days a week, video games and D&D and this show and God knows what else. My show unboxed something once. It's a whole plethora of stuff. See you next time.
Bye.